The day I drove up to my quiet little house in the countryside, my son was carrying my couch out the front door. Not just any couch, the couch I bought with my first decent paycheck. Behind him, my daughter-in-law barked orders at the movers like she'd been born the owner of the place. They hadn't seen me yet, so I did the one thing they never expected the old lady to do. I pulled out my phone, hit record, and filmed my own son robbing me in broad daylight. That video, it's the only reason I didn't lose everything. We'll come back to it in a minute. If anyone has ever tried to erase you from a life you built with your own hands, you need to hear this story all the way to the end. Because the part you think will break you might be the part that finally sets you free. And if you're a parent, this might be the hardest thing you will ever hear. My name is Lucia. I am 68, and this is how my only son almost stole the house I fought a lifetime to buy, and how I took it back. I turned off the dirt road onto my little lane. The trees open up, and there she is, my lake house, my dream, my peace. And parked right in front of it, a huge moving truck. Back doors yawning open, ramp down, boxes already stacked inside. For a second, my brain refuses to connect the dots. Maybe the Biebers hired movers. Maybe I took the wrong turn. Maybe this isn't my house. Then I see my blue shutters, the chipped paint on the porch rail I keep promising to fix. This is my house. My heart starts pounding. Daniel, my son, 42 years old, strong, healthy, is wrestling my couch down the front steps. The same couch where my mother slept when she came to visit. The same couch I scrubbed by hand after my grandkids spilled juice on it. Behind him, Mir, his wife, walks in and out of my front door like she owns the keys to heaven. She's carrying boxes with my handwriting on the flaps. Winter clothes, photo albums, books. She laughs at something he says, kicks the door shut with her foot. They don't see me. They're too busy dividing up my life. I stay at the gate, hidden behind the post. My hands are shaking, but not enough to stop me from pulling out my phone. I swipe to the camera, zoom in, and hit record. I film my son lifting my dining table, the table where we celebrated every birthday for 30 years. I film Mia tossing my framed photos into a box like old newspapers. Every item that leaves that house is a year of my life. A shift I worked, a meal I skipped, a backache I ignored. Evidence first, tears later. I keep recording until my storage almost screams. Only then do I slip the phone quietly back into my bag. I push the gate open, grab bowl crunches under my shoes. The air smells like pine and dust. Birds are singing. The lake is glittering. Nature is peaceful, while my entire world is being stripped bare. When I'm almost at the truck, Daniel finally turns. The box in his hands flips, thuds onto the metal floor. Mom? Mia appears in the doorway with a lamp under one arm. She freezes. For 3 long seconds, none of us speak. And Daniel opens his mouth, searching for the right lie. I lift my hand. Don't, I say.
Just that. Don't. He closes his mouth again. If you're listening to this while you're cooking or cleaning, just nod if this feels familiar. The people you sacrificed everything for, standing there with their hands in your pockets. Before I tell you what I said next at that truck, I need to take you back, because this didn't start with a moving van. It started with a promise I made over a hospital crib.
I was born in a town so small, if you blinked at the bus window, you'd miss it. Our house had more cracks than paint. In winter, you could see your breath in the kitchen. My mother washed strangers' clothes in cold water until the skin on her hands split open. My father worked the fields from sunrise to stars. We didn't starve, but we never, ever had extra. From them, I learned 2 things early. Nothing in this life is free, and nobody is coming to save you. At 22, I met Jorge. He had sawdust in his hair, a laugh that filled the room, and pockets as empty as mine. We got married anyway. We shared 1 bed, 1 dream, and about 8 spoons. He did construction. I cleaned offices, sweeping confetti from companies celebrating bonuses I would never see. But we were happy, really happy. We ate noodles, counted coins, and talked about the future like it was already waiting for us. At 26, I gave birth to our son, a tiny boy wrapped in a cheap blue blanket a neighbor had sewn for me. The nurse placed him on my chest. His eyes, dark and unfocused, blinked up at me. Right there, with hospital lights buzzing overhead and my body aching. I made a promise. You will never go hungry. You will never feel like a burden. Whatever it costs me, I will give you a better life. For 5 years, Jorge and I tried to keep that promise together. We worked. We argued about bills. We kissed after we argued. Then, one Tuesday morning, while Daniel ate cereal at the table and swung its little legs, Jorge zipped up a suitcase. He couldn't even look at me. "There's someone else," he said. "I need to be happy." Funny how men remember their happiness right when the bills are due and the child is eating at the table. He walked out with our savings, left his wedding ring by the sink like a dirty dish. That night, after I put Daniel to bed, I sat on the bathroom floor and sobbed until I tasted blood. In the morning, my alarm still rang. The floors at the office still needed scrubbing, and Daniel still needed breakfast. Grief didn't exempt me from life. So I washed my face, tied my hair back, and went to work. The next years were a blur of bleach and bus rides. I cleaned glass towers at night. During the day, I sewed buttons onto other people's shirts and hemmed curtains I couldn't afford myself. I slept 3, maybe 4 hours a night. My knees hurt, my back screamed, but Daniel always had shoes that fitted, books for school, an extra apple in his lunchbox when I went without.
On cold mornings, I'd watch him walk into the schoolyard from the bus stop, back straight, hair neatly combed, hand clutching a second-hand backpack. I'd whisper, "Study," even if he couldn't hear me. "Grun, so you don't have to scrub floors." He grew up fast, smart, curious, quick with numbers. Sometimes, when I dragged myself home and found him sleeping at the table over his homework, I'd rest my head next to his and think, at least my exhaustion means something. When he was 15, I finally got a better job. A proper cleaning company. Regular offices, slightly higher pay, health insurance. It felt like winning the lottery. I opened a new bank account no one else knew about. Every month, after rent and food and school expenses, I slid a small amount into that account. $10, $20, sometimes only $5. I didn't touch it. That money had a name in my head. House. Not rent, not rooms other people owned. A house with walls that were mine. A place no landlord could push us out of. Daniel finished high school with good grades. I cried in the school gym as if I'd gotten the diploma myself. He got into a decent university for business. He worked part-time in an electronics store. I picked up extra shifts. I paid what the scholarship didn't cover. I bought his books used when I could find them, new when I couldn't. I packed him leftovers so he didn't spend on food. On nights when the bus was late and I was walking home in the dark, my feet dragging, I repeated one sentence in my head like a prayer. This is not forever.
Around that time, my dream sharpened. Not just a house, a small place by the water. I'd seen a photo once in a client's magazine, a cottage at a lake, trees all around, a tiny pier. The caption said, "Weekend house, escape from the city." I said, I want that. Not a fancy version, my version. Years passed. My savings grew like a stubborn little plant in bad soil. Slow, but alive. When I turned 55, a woman from my church mentioned a listing. She said, some old lake houses up north. Ugly things, but cheap. My heart skipped. Ugly is fine. Cheap is good. I took a day off, got on a bus, and went to see them. The first house was damp and sad. The second smelled like mold and regret. The third one felt like it had been waiting for me. Peeling paint, sagging porch, a roof that looked like it had lost a few battles with the wind. But when I opened the door, I smelt wood and dust and possibility. The lake glimmered through the back window. Birds nested in a tree so close you could touch its trunk from the porch. The air smelled like freedom. Not fancy restaurant freedom. Hard-earned, sore-backed, I did this myself freedom. The price? Every dollar and my secret account for the down payment, plus a loan that would keep me scrubbing offices for a few more years. I looked at the agent, translated the numbers in my head into nights of work. Then I thought of Daniel's days when he'd see his mother finally owning something. I said, "I'll take it." My hand shook when I signed the papers, but it shook with excitement, not fear. For the first time in my life, I owned a piece of land.
For the next few years, I lived 2 lives. Weekdays in the city, fluorescent lights, mop bucket, smell of disinfectant. Weekends by the lake. Cracked walls, fresh air, paint under my fingernails. Friday evenings, I'd step onto the rickety bus with a small bag and a big smile. As the city dissolved into fields and trees, I could feel my lungs start to work properly again. At the house, I rolled up my sleeves, I patched holes, scrubbed floors, painted the living room a warm yellow so it would feel like the sun was inside with me. I bought furniture piece by piece. A second-hand table with scratches in the wood. I ran my hand over them like reading Braille. A sofa from a classified ad. I cleaned it, sewed a loose seam, and promised it would see better days. A lamp from a flea market that looked like something out of my childhood. Nothing matched, but everything belonged. By 60, the loan was paid. No more bank letters, no more interest. The deed came back to me stamped paid in full, with my name alone. I pressed it to my chest and cried. "This is ours, Daniel," I told my son on the phone that night. "No bank, no landlord, just us." He sounded genuinely happy. He said, "I'm proud of you, Mom. You really did it." Mia's voice floated faintly in the background. I heard her say, "Ask her if she's going to update it to our names later." I pretended I didn't hear. I met Mia properly at Daniel's graduation. She arrived in a neat dress, hair perfect, smelling like expensive perfume. Her parents had that look people get when they think cleaning jobs are something to whisper. She shook my hand with her fingers barely touching my skin. "Mrs. Santos," she said, "Daniel talks so much about how hard you worked." It sounded like a compliment. It felt like a diagnosis. For my son's sake, I smiled. I told myself I didn't need her to love me, just to be kind. They married young. I used part of my savings for a modest wedding. I cooked for days, made centerpieces out of jars and wildflowers. Mia looked around the hall and said, "It's sweet." She meant cheap. Daniel looked happy, so I swallowed the sting. They moved into a rented apartment. Both worked. I stayed in my city place and kept working too. On some weekends, I invited them to the lake. Daniel loved it. He'd sit on the porch with his coffee, looking at the water. "You're going to live like a queen here," he said once. Mia scanned the room with her eyes and said, "Needs a lot of work. These old houses are money pits, Lucia. Modern is easier." I laughed it off. Not everyone understands loving something that isn't shiny. Mia got pregnant. Then again. Ethan came first. Then little Maya. I became Grandma Lucia. Tiny hands on my cheeks, little heads on my shoulder. Every time I went back to my small city apartment afterward, the silence felt louder, But I told myself this was the reward for all the scrubbing. House, son, grandchildren. I thought my story was finally going to be simple. I was wrong. About 6 months before that moving truck, Daniel's tone changed. He started calling more. Not just, "Hi, Mom, how are you?" but, "Mom, where do you keep the house deed? Do you have a will? Do you know when your ID expires? Are your documents safe?" His questions sounded caring. "Scammers target older people," he said. "I want to make sure no one takes advantage of you." He came to the lake house with a notebook one weekend. We sat at my kitchen table. I opened the little metal box where I kept everything important. The deed, the old loan papers, the last property tax receipts. He took photos of each document with his phone. "Backups," he said, "in case of fire or something." I felt seen, protected. I had never been old enough for someone to worry about me before. If you're listening to this and your grown child has suddenly become very interested in your paperwork, it can be love. It can also be a red flag. Sometimes it's both. At the time, I chose to see only love.
The real alarm didn't come from family. It came from a stranger. I was folding laundry in my city apartment when the phone rang. "Mrs. Lucia Santos," a male voice said. "Yes? This is from Central Notary. We are confirming some details regarding your property on Lakeside Road. We have a request here for valuation related to a potential sale." I almost dropped the towel. "Sale?" I repeated. "I'm not selling my house." There was a pause. "Oh," he said, "that's odd. We have documents here with your signature requesting the process. Maybe there has been a mistake. I will verify and call you back." "Wait," I said. "What documents? Who requested—" But he had already hung up. "Signature. Whose signature?" If you're older and you're hearing this, let this be your first red flag. When strangers know more about your property plans than you do, something is wrong. He never called back. I tried to return the call, but nobody picked up. That night, I slept badly. I turned from side to side, hearing the word signature over and over. The next day, I called Daniel. As soon as I explained, he exploded. "Scammers, Num," he said. "The target old people. Promise me you won't give anyone your information. If they call again, hang up and call me. Do not worry." His anger on my behalf felt reassuring. I believed him. 2 weeks later, there was a knock at my door. A man in a neat suit stood there with a briefcase. "Mrs. Santos?" he asked. "We're interested in properties in your lake area. We'd like to make you an offer." "I'm not selling," I said firmly. He smiled, a little too wide. "Sometimes the money in your hand is more useful than an old house in the middle of nowhere," he said. "Your son has already—"
He stopped himself. Already what? I asked. He coughed. Already mentioned that the property might be available in the future. Nothing formal, of course. We can offer a very good price. He slid a sheet of paper across my tiny table. Numbers. Big numbers. Tempting numbers. For a second, I imagined paying all my small debts, buying new shoes, taking the trip. Then I saw my house in my mind. The morning light in the kitchen, the way the wind sounded at night, the way we'd painted the walls. I pushed the paper back. I know, I said. Thank you. Goodbye. He looked annoyed. As he left, he said, Well, my client has already invested time and money getting things prepared. I hope there isn't a misunderstanding. That feeling? When your heart drops before they even finish the sentence. That's your intuition. Don't ignore it, like I did.
I called Daniel again that night, told him about the man, the good price, the mention of preparations. On the phone, he sounded stiff, almost like he was reading lines. People are really out to get you, Mom, he finally said. Listen, for security, I think I should look over all your documents. We don't want anyone faking anything. Bring everything to the lake this weekend, okay? I agreed, because that's what mothers do. We agree. We trust. That weekend, he arrived alone. No Mia, no kids. He had a big folder in his hand and a serious face. We sat at my yellow kitchen table. He spread my documents out like a doctor examining x-rays. He frowned, took notes, made phone calls in the yard. I watched from the window while I stirred a pot of soup. He paced back and forth talking to someone. Yes, she's 68. Yes, original owner. Yes, no mortgage anymore. After lunch, he came back in. Good news mostly. He said, everything's okay, but there are some things that should be updated. Laws have changed. We need new registrations or someone really could take advantage of you. He pulled one document out of his folder. He said, this is a power of attorney. Limited. It just allows me to sign or handle things for you if you're sick or can't come in person. Pay taxes. Talk to offices. Nothing big. My friend who's a lawyer helped me fill it. He pointed to my name. He said, all standard. You can revoke it any time. I'd never use it against you. You know that, right? The paper was full of tiny words and legal sentences. My eyes blurred. I could have asked questions. I could have asked to meet the friend. I could have said I needed time. Instead, I thought of every time those eyes had looked at me for comfort. Every fever I'd soothed. Every night I'd waited up for him. How do you look at your own child and imagine them stealing it from you? You don't. You sign. I picked up the pen. My hand shook a little. He smiled. He said, Mom, here, he said gently, steadying the page, right there. I signed where he pointed. He kissed my forehead. He said, you won't regret this. He was right. I wouldn't regret it. I would fight like hell to undo it. If you take nothing else from my story, take this. Never sign anything just because you love the person holding the pen. And if you've already signed something that you're not sure about, don't be ashamed. Just promise yourself
You'll get it checked after this video. Love is not a legal strategy.
For a while, things went back to normal. Daniel called often, asked about my health, my jobs, my bus trips. Mia started being nicer too. She invited me to dinner, sent photos of the kids, tagged me in family pictures online. I thought, maybe we're finally becoming close. Then, one Wednesday, I couldn't stand the city noise anymore. I usually went to the lake on Fridays. This time, I packed a bag on a whim and took the Medwick bus. The ride was quieter. Fewer people. Just me and a man sleeping with his mouth open. When I got off and walked toward my lane, I saw a car parked near my gate. Not Daniel's, not Lola's, not anyone I recognized. The front door of my house was half open. Every hair on my arms stood up. I walked quietly, my old shoes almost soundless on the dirt. Inside, I heard voices. One was Daniel. The other was a man's voice I didn't know. "Knock this wall down. Open the kitchen," the stranger was saying. "How to deck? You're easily looking at dirty $40,000 more on resale." Resale? I pressed myself against the hallway wall. Daniel's voice was calm. He could have been talking about office supplies. "I just want everything done before she changes her mind," he said. "The paperwork's basically ready. We just need the final signatures." "She won't give you trouble?" the man asked. Daniel laughed softly. "She already signed what she needs to," he said. "Old people hate details." The world tilted. I stepped into the living room doorway. The stranger, holding rolls of blueprints, went pale. Daniel froze, mouth half open. "Mum, you're early?" I said. "What is going on?" My voice was quieter than I felt. The stranger rushed forward, shoving his business card toward me. "Just an appraiser," he babbled. "Your son wanted an informal valuation. Nothing official. No worries." He was sweating. Guilty people sweat. I looked at Daniel. His face had that look when he was a boy and I caught him stealing cookies. The look that says, maybe I can still talk my way out of this. "Exploring options?" he said weakly. Maybe you'd like to sell and move closer to us. This place is a lot of work. I just wanted to surprise you with good news." "Good news?" I repeated. My chest felt tight. I said, "This is my home. I have never said I want to sell, not once." He opened his mouth again, reaching for another excuse. I raised my hand. "Out," I said. The appraiser didn't argue. He scooped up his papers, mumbled something, and practically ran to his car. Daniel hesitated. "Mum, please," he said. "You're being out." I repeated. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just pointed at the door. He left. The door closed behind him. The silence was so loud my ears rang. That night, I sat in the living room with every light on. I stared at the walls, the lamp, the sofa, the curtains I'd sewn. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same. My son had been walking through my house with a stranger, planning its sale like I was already dead. The next morning, I went back to the city, and for once, I didn't call Daniel. I called a lawyer.
His office was above a pharmacy, next to a shop that sold cheap shoes. The sign on the door said, "Andrew Carter, Elder Law, Wills, Property."
He looked to be in his 50s. Gray hair, tired eyes, kind voice. He offered me coffee. I didn't trust my hands to hold the cup, so I said no. Instead, I put my folder of documents on his desk. My hands shook anyway. "I think my son is trying to take my house," I said. The words tasted like poison. He didn't flinch. "Tell me everything," he said. So I did. The notary call, the real estate man, the sudden concern, the power of attorney, the appraiser. He listened. He took notes. He asked questions. Then he started reading. He read that power of attorney 3 times. His jaw clenched. "This," he said finally, "is not limited." He tapped the page. "With this, your son can represent you in almost any matter. Buy, sell, mortgage. As long as a notary believes he's acting with your consent, he can sign in your pledge." "In normal words?" I asked. "In normal words," he said, "if you had not come here, your son could have sold your house without you standing there. On paper, it would look as if you did it." "My own son?" I whispered. "I've seen families do worse over less," he said. "Desperation and entitlement are a nasty mix. That's why you have to be the one who reads every line." Tears burned my eyes, but I blinked them back so I could see the paper clearly. "What can I do?" I asked. "First," he said, "we revoke this right now. Second, we put a notice in the property registry that says no sale or mortgage is valid unless you are physically present to sign in front of a notary. That way, anyone who tries anything will hit a wall." "And the cost?" I asked. I had some savings. Not much. He named a number far lower than I expected. "Cases like yours make me angry," he said quietly. "Consider it professional revenge." We drafted the revocation. I signed it with the same hand that once signed away my power. This time I read every line. At the notary, the woman behind the desk looked me in the eye. "Do you understand you're canceling your son's power over your property?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "For the first time, I really do." Mr. Carter filed the cautionary notice. "It'll take a few days to show up in the system," he said. "In the meantime, don't tell your son you've seen me. Let's see what he does when the door closes." I walked home, feeling both lighter and heavier. Lighter because finally someone was on my side. Heavier because the war had just become real.
In the days that followed, I played the part of the slightly confused mother. I answered some of Daniel's calls. I let others go to voicemail. He sounded worried. He asked if I was okay, if I was sleeping, if the house felt safe. Part of me wanted to scream into the phone, "How dare you ask about my safety while planning to steal from me?" Instead, I said, "I'm fine, just tired." Mia sent long messages. "Family is all we have. You misinterpreted the appraisal. Daniel loves you so much." Manipulation wrapped in glitter. One afternoon, I went back to the lake and knocked on Lola's door. She lived in the next house over, about 200 yards away.
with her old blue truck and her loud chickens. She opened the door with a surprised smile. "Lucia, twice in 1 week? That's a record." I stepped inside. Her house smelled like soup and lavender. "Lola," I said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest, even if it hurts." Her smile faded. "Have you seen my son here when I wasn't around? With people, with trucks, anything strange?" She hesitated, eyes flicking to the window. Finally, she sighed. "I thought you knew," she said. "I've seen him here more than you. He came with a man in a suit a few weeks ago. They walked the property, measuring, pointing. Another time, he was here with Mia. She took photos of everything. He stood in the garden, talking on the phone about deadlines and closing dates. I thought you had decided to renovate or sell and just didn't feel like explaining." My chest tightened. "Thank you," I said. "I wish what you told me was different, but thank you." We sat at her table. She poured us coffee. "You know," she said, "my cousin in another town lost her house to her own nephew. He had her sign papers she didn't understand. She ended up with nothing but a suitcase. Don't be like her, Lucia." "I'm trying," I said. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "We old ladies have to watch each other's backs," she said. I walked back to my house slowly. Everything Lola had said fit together with what Mr. Carter told me. There was a plan. There was a timeline. I had simply walked in halfway through the movie. Now I needed to see how it ended.
The call came on a cloudy afternoon. I was in my city kitchen, watering my lone plant, when my phone rang. "Hello, this is Silver Oak Moving," a cheerful woman said. "We're just confirming the full house removal for Friday from Lakeside Road 17. Is that still going ahead?" For a moment, I couldn't breathe. "Removal from where?" I asked, even though I knew. She repeated my address. "No," I said, "there is no move. I haven't hired anyone." She sounded confused. "We have a signed order and a deposit from Mr. Daniel Santos. He said it's his mother's house and he is helping her move out. We're supposed to pack everything, furniture, boxes, appliances." "My house is not moving," I cut in. "If your truck shows up there without me present, you will be helping someone steal from me. Cancel it." She hesitated. I'll have to speak to my supervisor," she said, "but I'll note your objection and I'll flag it under legal conflict." "Please do," I said. When I hung up, my hands were shaking so badly I had to sit down. I called Mr. Carter immediately. He didn't need many details. He said, "This confirms it. He tried the legal route. Our registry notice blocked it. Now he's trying to take physical possession. You need to go there, Lucia. Stay in that house. Don't leave it alone until we sort this. And we're past the point of this being just family issues. We need the police." The word police made my stomach twist. "He's my son," I whispered. "He is also a man planning a crime," Mr. Carter said quietly. "Those two things can be true at once." That night, I packed a small suitcase. Some clothes, my medicines, my documents.
I put the folder of house papers in my bag. I put my phone charger on top. Then I sat on the edge of my bed and looked at the wall. Memories hung there. Daniel at 5. Daniel at 10. Daniel in his graduation cap. Somewhere between those photos and today, something had gone very wrong. I used to think a mother's job was to protect her child from the world. Now I realized sometimes you have to protect the world and yourself from your child.
I took the first bus at dawn. The road to the lake felt longer than ever. I watched trees flash past the window without really seeing them. When the bus dropped me off, I walked quickly. The sky was gray. The air smelled like rain and anxiety. From the hill, I could see my house. No truck, no car. Everything looked quiet. Too quiet. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and closed it behind me. The house smelled like dust and lemon cleaner. At first glance, everything was where I left it. Sofa, table, lamp. But then I saw small things. A drawer I always left slightly open was closed tight. One photo on the shelf was out of order. Someone had been here. I went straight to the desk where I kept old paperwork. I pulled out all the drawers, emptied them on the floor. Bills, receipts, old letters, and then, at the very bottom of the last drawer, I found it. A sales contract. My address, my full name, the price, $35,000. Buyer, some company name I'd never heard before. Seller, Lucia Santos. Signature, wobbly, flawed, but close enough to pass at a quick glance. Witnesses, Daniel Santos and Mia Santos. My knees went weak. I had to sit down on the floor. Do you know how terrifying it is to see your own handwriting in a memory you don't have? If that sentence just made your stomach drop, please check your own documents after this video. I took photos of every page, front, back, dates, stamps. Then I carefully put the contract back exactly where I found it. I called Mr. Carter. He answered on the second ring. When I told him, he went very quiet. "That's documentary fraud," he said. "It's serious. Don't catch it again. We need the police to see it in place. I'll be there in the morning with an officer. Lock your doors tonight. Don't let anyone in you don't know." After we hung up, the house felt huge and hollow. I checked every window, closed the shutters, turned on all the lights. Then I sat on the sofa, hands wrapped around a mug of tea I didn't drink. Every creak, every gust of wind made me jump. I thought about the boy who used to sleep with his toy truck clutched to his chest. The teenager who'd cried when he didn't get the part-time job he wanted. The young man I'd watched walk across the stage to receive his diploma. Was this the same person planning to empty my house while I stood in the yard with nothing?
At some point, my eyes closed. I woke up to the sound of a truck engine, but this time it wasn't a moving truck.
When I looked out, I saw Lola's blue pickup. She climbed out with a basket in her arms. She waved at me. "I saw all your lights on last night," she said when I opened the door. "It looked like a lighthouse. I brought coffee and bread." I almost cried, just seeing another human face. We sat at my kitchen table. I showed her the photos on the contract. She shook her head slowly. "People say thieves come in the night," she said. "Sometimes they come with your own cheekbones." We waited. Around 10, Mr. Carter's car pulled into the drive. He wasn't alone. A police cruiser stopped behind him. The officer was in his 40s. Professional. Calm. They came inside. I showed him the drawer. The officer put on gloves, lifted the contract, and slid it into a clear folder. He took notes, asked questions. "When this goes to court," he said, "this will be strong evidence. Your son and his wife prepared a fraudulent sale and tried to execute it behind your back. You did well coming to a lawyer in time." He advised me to change the locks. "Right now they have keys," he said. "They're used to walking in and out like it's theirs. Make it not theirs anymore." Lola called the locksmith she knew. He arrived with a toolbox, kind eyes, and no judgment. He changed the front door lock, the back door, and the shed. He handed me 3 new keys. He said, "Hide one, give one to someone you trust, keep one on you." I gave one to Lola. I hid one in a strange place. I had to write it down. The 3rd, I put on a chain around my neck. That afternoon, Mr. Carter explained the next steps. He said, "The prosecutor will review the evidence. Your son will be questioned. So will the notary, the appraiser, and whoever arranged the moving truck. This won't be quick, but you're protected now. And Lucia," he added, "whatever happens, remember this. You are not the one breaking the family. You were the one stopping the crime." At night, Lola insisted I sleep at her place. She said, "You've got enough ghosts in your head. You don't need to listen for engines all night." I accepted. For the first time in weeks, I slept in a bed without my shoes on. The next morning, we drove back to my house together. The sky was bright, too bright. We made coffee, sat on the porch, and pretended to talk about recipes, but we were both listening for engines. Sometime around noon, we heard it. A deep rumble climbing the hill. A big moving truck rolled into view like a gray beast. Behind it, Daniel's car. My heart tried to escape my chest. Lola put her hand over mine. "We're here. You're not alone," she whispered. The truck stopped right in front of the gate. The driver jumped out. So did his coworker. They opened the back, pulled down the ramp, and checked their paperwork. Then Daniel and Mia got out of the car. Mia stepped onto the dirt in high-heeled sandals, wrinkling her nose. Daniel looked up and saw us sitting on the porch. Surprise flashed across his face. He hadn't expected an audience. He plastered on a smile. "Mom," he called, walking toward the gate. "What a coincidence! We were just coming to help you." I stood up slowly. I walked to the gate, but I didn't open it. The metal bars between us felt right. "Help me? How?" I asked. He gestured to the truck. "We thought we'd get you started on decluttering," he said. "Take some heavy furniture away, make the house easier for you to manage. You shouldn't be alone with all this." If this was you right now, would you open the gate and let them in, or would you keep it locked? Be honest. Tell me in your head which one you do. And if you're brave, type it in the comments. Lola stood slightly behind me, arms crossed. The movers were watching with mild curiosity. They just want to do their job and get paid. I didn't move. Instead, I took my phone out of my pocket. I unlocked it, opened the gallery, and tapped the photo of the fake sales contact. I held the screen up against the bars so Daniel and Mia could see. "I know exactly what you've been planning," I said. All the color drained from their faces. Mia recovered first. Her mouth twisted. "You went through our paperwork?" she snapped. "That wasn't even finalized. It was just a draft. You're overreacting. Drafts don't come with forged signatures, witnessed by the two of you, and moving trucks already paid. The worst monsters, by the way, are the ones who say we're not monsters out loud." Mia's voice rose. "You're an ungrateful old woman," she shouted. "We have done everything for you. We looked at your future. We planned renovations. We talked to professionals. You can't maintain this house. You can't even climb a ladder. We were just trying to help you before you die alone in this dump." Every word she said exposed her heart more than mine. Daniel tried to shush her. "Calm down," he muttered. He looked at me. "Mom, don't listen to her tone," he said. "She's upset. We just want what's best for you. You're tired. It would be better for you to live closer to us. We could manage this place, sell it smartly, invest the money. You could live comfortably." "Comfortably where?" I asked. "In your guest room when it suits you? Or in a small apartment you will help me pay with my own money?" His jaw clenched. He knew I'd seen through it. The driver walked up cautiously. "Excuse me," he said. "Should we start, or—" I turned to him. "This is my house," I said clearly. "I have not hired you. I do not authorize anyone to remove anything from inside. If you touch anything, you will be participating in theft. The police already know about the situation. If someone ever shows up to help you move and you didn't hire them, use this word, theft. It changes how seriously people listen." Lola stepped forward. "And I'm a witness," she added. "I live right there. You do not want to be part of this." The two movers looked at each other.
One folded up his clipboard. "Let's go," he said to the other. "This is above our pay grade." "But the deposit," Daniel started. "Sir, we're not losing our license over a family argument. You can sort this out and call the office later." They walked back to the truck. The engine roared to life. As the truck reversed down the lane, a small car pulled in front of it, forcing it to stop. Mr. Carter stepped out, tie slightly crooked, briefcase in hand, and right behind him, a police cruiser.
The officer from the day before got out of the cruiser. He took in the scene. Me, Lola, Daniel, Mia, the almost leaving truck, Mr. Carter with his briefcase. "Everything okay here, Miss Santos?" he asked me. "Yes," I said, "because you're here." Mr. Carter walked up to the date. "Good afternoon," he said, voice calm but firm. "As of now, my client does not authorize any person to access this property except Mrs. Lopez, her neighbor. She has revoked her son's power of attorney. We have filed a cautionary notice in the property registry, and there exists a forged sales contract already in police custody." He turned to the movers. "Gentlemen, from a legal standpoint, you have no valid order from the owner to remove anything. I suggest you leave." They didn't need telling twice. They drove away. The officer faced Daniel and Mia. "I've already taken Miss Santos' statement about the forged contract," he said. "We're investigating. Showing up today with a moving truck does not help your case." "This is all blown out of proportion," Mia said loudly. "It's just a family misunderstanding. Old people get confused." She looked at me and raised her voice. Tell them you gave Daniel permission." I met her eyes. I gave birth to Daniel. I did not give him permission to steal from me. The officer looked at Daniel. "Sir," he said, "you are formally warned. You are not to come to this property again without an explicit invitation from your mother. Any attempt to enter, remove items, or pressure her will result in your arrest. Is that clear?" Daniel nodded, face tight. He looked at me. "Mom, please," he said softly, "don't do this. We're family. Do you really want your grandchildren to grow up knowing you sent your father to jail?" A part of me wanted it to collapse, to say, "No, never mind, forget the whole thing." But another part of me, the part that had scrubbed floors for 40 years, stood taller. "If I wanted to protect you from consequences," I said, "I had 30 years to do that. This is my turn to protect myself." He flinched. "Loving you," I added quietly, "does not mean covering your crimes." Mia grabbed his arm. "Enough," she hissed. "Let's go. We'll let the lawyers handle this." They got in the car. Daniel looked at me one last time. I couldn't read his eyes. Regret, anger, fear, maybe all of the above. The car rolled away, dust rising behind it. The officer stayed long enough to give me his card again. "Call if they come back," he said. Mr. Carter sat with me on the porch after everyone left. He asked the video you recorded when you first saw them. I nodded and showed him that he watched my son and daughter-in-law looting my life into a truck. For the first time that day, he smiled. He said, "This is exactly what the prosecutor loves. They can say you misunderstood. They can't argue with video." He added, "Save it in 3 places: phone, computer, cloud. That video, plus the contract, plus today, they don't have much room to lie." My hands were still shaking, but for the first time in weeks, they were shaking with relief.
The next weeks felt like someone had pressed a slow motion button on my life. On the outside, nothing changed. I still made coffee, fed the chickens with Lola, watched the sun rise over the lake. On the inside, everything was different. Some days I felt strong. Other days I felt like a traitor. What kind of mother takes her own son to court? Mr. Carter kept me updated. "The prosecutor's moving forward," he said one afternoon in his office. "They've questioned the appraiser, the notary, the moving company. Everyone's story matches what we suspected. Your son and daughter-in-law planned to sell the house using a forged contract. When that ran into trouble, they decided to empty the house and take possession physically." He paused. "They're being formally charged with document forgery and attempted property fraud." I swallowed hard. "Will he go to prison?" I asked. "It's possible," he said, "unless we find another route. There is the option of a plea deal. They admit guilt, restitute your expenses, and stay away from you under a restraining order. Lighter consequences, but the record still shows what they did. The choice is yours." I sat in silence for a long time. "I don't want him behind bars," I said finally. "I love that boy more than my own life. But I also don't want to spend the rest of my years waiting for another truck. If we make a deal, I want it written in stone." Negotiations took months. Their lawyer tried to claim it had all been a misunderstanding. The evidence said otherwise. In the end, Daniel and Mia took the deal. They admitted to falsifying documents and attempting to sell the property. They paid my legal cost. They returned every document they still had copies of. They signed an agreement to stay away from me and my house for 5 years. No calls, no accidental visits, no sending other people in their place. The day Mr. Carter brought me the final papers, we sat on my porch. "You protected your home," he said. "You drew a line. That's not something to feel ashamed of." I nodded, but tears still slid down my face. Grief for the son I loved. Grief for the family dinners that would never happen now. Relief, too. A heavy door had closed. Behind it stood the people who had tried to rob me. In front of it was my life.
For a while, I thought choosing myself meant choosing loneliness. Who did I have now? No husband, a son at arm's length, grandchildren caught in the middle? But I was wrong. I didn't lose family. I just learned who my real family was. Lola became my daily companion. We cooked together. We argued about recipes. We watered plants and cursed at weeds. She told me about her husband who had died young. her children who lived far away and visited once a year. Sometimes, she said, the people you share blood with live on another planet. The people next door are your real tribe. One Sunday, she dragged me to a meeting at the little church in town. A group of older women sat in a circle. They drank coffee from mismatched cups. They laughed loud. They also carried stories heavier than mine. One woman's daughter had tried to declare her incompetent to control her pension. Another's nephew had tricked her into signing a loan that took her house. We cried together. We laughed together. Someone suggested we should do more than just talk. So we started organizing information meetings. Mr. Carter agreed to come for free once a month. He stood at the front of the church hall and explained what a power of attorney is, what a will should include, what to never sign without your own independent lawyer. We printed flyers. We invited anyone we knew. The hall filled up. Some people came with canes, some with daughters or sons. I stood up one night and told my story. My voice shook. My hands trembled. But as I spoke, I saw heads nodding. People wiped tears. When I finished, an older man in the front row raised his hand. He said, "My son has been asking for similar papers. I thought it was normal. Tomorrow, I'm going to a lawyer." He winked at me. "Because of you." I realized that my pain could be a map for someone else. Maybe that's how we survive the unforgivable things. We make sure they're harder to repeat.
6 months after the showdown at the gate, a letter arrived in my mailbox. The envelope had shaky, childish writing. My heart squeezed as soon as I saw the name, Grandma Lucia, on the front. Inside, a piece of paper lined with blue lines. "Dear Grandma," it said, "this is Ethan. I miss you. Mom and Dad say grown-ups have problems and we can't visit for a while. But I remember your house and the lake and the ducks. I drew a picture for you." Below the words, a drawing. My house with flowers in front, a sun, 2 little figures holding hands with a bigger one. He had written our names over each head. Ethan, Maya, Grandma. I pressed the paper to my chest and sobbed. My grandchildren were not to blame for their parents' choices. They deserved my love, even if I couldn't stand their parents' faces. I wrote back. I didn't talk about courts or contracts. I told him about the baby chicks Lola's hens had hatched, about the tomatoes in my garden, about the books I was reading. I wrote, "Grown-ups sometimes take a long time to fix their problems, but my love for you doesn't need fixing. It is always there." We began exchanging letters. Maya sent me pictures of princesses and ducks. Ethan told me about school. I never wrote anything bad about their parents. One day, when they're older, they'll read the legal records if they want. They'll know the truth then. For now, it's enough that they know their grandmother didn't disappear by choice.
Life settled into a new rhythm. Most days I stayed at the lake. I woke early, made coffee, and sat on the porch watching mist lift off the water. Sometimes I'd close my eyes and imagine who I would have been if Jorge hadn't left, if Daniel hadn't changed, if my life had been simple. Then I'd open my eyes again and look at my house. The cracks in the walls I'd filled myself, the flowers I'd planted, the sturdy table. This house was proof that I didn't need a simple life. I just needed my own. I fixed small things, a loose board, a wobbly chair. I painted the bedroom a soft blue. I hung wind chimes by the window. When the wind blew, they sang. "You did it," they seemed to say. "You kept us." Sometimes guilt would still creep in. When I saw a boy, Daniel's age, hugging his mother at the market, I'd feel a sharp pain. Maybe in another life that could have been us. But in this life, my son had chosen money over me. I couldn't change that. What I could change was how I let it define me. I stopped telling myself I was a poor old woman somebody tried to rob. I started telling myself I am the woman who built something from nothing, and when someone tried to steal it, I fought back. It may sound small. It isn't. If you're still with me, and you're listening while stirring a pot or folding laundry, I want to talk to you now. Maybe you're a mother, maybe a father, maybe an aunt or a grandfather or someone who never had children but always took care of everyone. Maybe your kids call you only when they need money. Maybe your daughter-in-law rolls her eyes when you speak. Maybe you're already hearing sentences like, "You don't need such a big place. It's better if we manage your finances. You're old-fashioned. Let us handle it." And maybe, like me, you want to believe it's all love. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it isn't. Here's what I learned. Get your name on the papers. Know where those papers are. Keep copies. Never sign anything you don't understand, no matter how much you love the person putting it under your nose. Don't let shame or fear of family drama stop you from calling a lawyer. Ask questions until you're annoying. The right people won't be offended. The wrong people will show their true face. Don't confuse love with surrender. You can love your children and still say, "No, you will not touch my house. No, you will not take my pension. No, you will not speak to me like that." Being alone with your dignity is better than being surrounded in humiliation and calling it family. I was 68 when I finally learned that. You can learn it today. These days, when the sun sets over the lake, the sky turns all kinds of colors. Gold, pink, purple at the edges. I sit on my porch, keys warm in my hand. The same keys they thought they could take from me. I think about that video I took the day they tried to empty my house. The little screen that got them in the act. That video, the contract, my courage to say no, and the good lawyer. That's what saved my home. If this story reached something inside you, tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and write, I'm locking my gate. Maybe your gate is your front door. Maybe it's your bank account. Maybe it's your peace. Whatever it is, you're allowed to lock it. And you're allowed to keep the key.